When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. You might have heard that quote before. It's an old self-help saying that has become very Instagrammable in recent years. It's definitely a clever play on words, and after a brief moment of pondering it, the trueness of the quote tends to reveal itself. I like to think that I'm much smarter than someone who falls for a catchy phrase that you can stick to your refrigerator, but evidently I'm not. For anyone who's ever successfully changed their outlook on something simply by changing the way they choose to look at it, it's hard to deny the effectiveness of that quote. I guess there's a lot to be said for the power of a perspective shift. Do you know where else a perspective shift can be useful? Why, in comics, that is. If you're stuck on a panel and trying to find the best way to communicate a pivotal moment in the story or convey a certain emotion, try shifting your perspective. Move the camera around and put yourself in the scene. Look at it from an ant's perspective, as well as a bird's perspective, and everything in between. As you change perspectives, ask yourself what this vantage point does to the clarity of the particular scene that you're trying to illustrate. I was never really able to teach perspective all that well. That's probably because my own understanding of it is much less technical and much more intuitive. I'm not a math person, and most perspective education out there reminds me of math, so I tend to only get so far with that stuff. I understand the basic gist of it, 1, 2, 3-point perspectives, and I try my best to make it work for me. Actually, I try my best to make it work for the reader because ultimately, when we're trying to create worlds that our characters can exist in, it's important to have an approach that allows the reader to fall into the story, no matter how realistically or cartoony you depict your world. In comics, the believability of something is only as convincing as you can draw it, and the consistency of the way that you draw it throughout your story is key. There's an exhausting amount of free resources online that can teach you how to draw perspective, and I encourage you to learn from as much of it as you can. There are far more qualified professionals giving solid advice out there, so there's no point in me trying to copy what they say in a much more watered-down way. What I will offer you, though, is a reminder of this simple, corny, self-help slogan, and hopefully the next time you're stuck on how to visually communicate a moment in your comic, you remember one thing: to change the way you're looking at it.